Hi, we're Ryerson Rams Robotics, and today we're here with Ashlin Kanawaty. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
My name is Vanessa. I'm a mechanical lead on the team.
And I'm Kelly Marcel, the media team lead.
And Ashlin, please describe yourself to us.
Sure. So I am a mechatronics engineer. I graduated from McMaster University in 2017, and I currently work at a medical device company in Hamilton called Mariner Endosurgery. There, I'm the senior engineer and project manager for an autonomous endoscope positioner for laparoscopic surgery.
Wow, that's so interesting. So we'll just dive into our first question. Could you tell us more about your current position and like what a typical week looks like for you?
Okay, so I guess for me, I work heavy into research and development. So a typical week for me could range from anything to like doing a lot of CAD to coding to sometimes even just like working with my hands, making like wires or working with motors, things like that.
Wow, and you said you worked at Mariner. Could you elaborate on what the company does and their main objectives?
Sure. So Mariner Endosurgery is a medical device company, and we specialize in making surgical navigation products. Our flagship product is called LapRegard, which is a augmented reality software which allows surgeons to define areas of risk in real time and mitigates risk by helping surgeons avoid those areas.
That sounds so interesting. So now for like a more personal question. What would you describe as your most distinctive character?
I would say for myself, probably two things resonate for me. One is lifelong learner and the other is resourceful. So I really enjoy taking on new challenges where I have lots of room to grow and learn. And these challenges often require me to take initiative and find quick and clever solutions to what I think are interesting problems.
Oh, nice, and it's clear that you are and have been involved in many different teams, which exposes you to a lot of different types of people. What is it like working with, and in some cases leading, different groups of colleagues?
That's a really good question. So I think a big part of being a leader is so having, I guess, like the big picture vision of what it is that you are trying to do, and then finding a team with goals and values that are aligned with your goals and values. And I mean, there's a variety of like soft skills that really help with that, like being a good listener, being a good communicator, receiving and giving feedback. Those are all important things. So I think it's just important to understand what's important to you, your company, and to your team, and to get aligned on those things.
That sounds like very valuable skills to have to create like a cohesive environment.
Mm-hmm.
In your journey to where you are now, what would you say is something that you did differently from most people that helped you find success?
So I guess for me, an important kind of like value that I have in my career is to seek out interesting and difficult problems. So I think seeking out difficult problems inevitably involves some level of failure along the path to a solution. And it can be hard to deliberately put yourself through struggle and failure because, let's be honest, like when you're going through it, it doesn't feel so great. But you have to go into it with the understanding that you cannot grow in the absence of adversity. And it's a necessary and sufficient part of self-improvement. So I think maybe what I've done differently is I seek out opportunities to engage with and overcome adversities in my career and in my personal life as well.
Do you have any skills that you think helped you overcome those adversities?
Sure. So I think like when I guess when we're talking about this sort of thing, it's more of like a soft skill sort of thing. So like perseverance is really important. Confidence, believing in yourself, those things are really important. And then I also think that like a large part of overcoming adversities in like an engineering sense is like acquiring skills. So it's really important to develop your technical skill set as best you can.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like one thing I went through is in first year, I was really focused on like just my studies and like doing really well in school. And like now in second year, I've like forced myself to join these different types of clubs and like put myself out there, which is so scary at the moment, but I've been like persevering through it. So it's nice to hear from you that it's a good skill to have.
Absolutely. That's definitely like the right thing to be doing, is like really like get your hands dirty and like just go out there. And you know, like I think again, like it's going to be hard, you're going to feel like you're failing sometimes, but that probably means that you're actually doing it right.
That's definitely true. Like sometimes you feel discouraged. Sometimes it's very hard, but it's good to hear that it's worth it. It's good to be in that space.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. What accomplishments are you particularly proud of?
I would say the thing that I'm probably most proud of is what I'm working on right now at Mariner, which is my autonomous endoscope positioner. I think I'm proud of it most because it's required me to have like a high level vision for what I think the product will be and to manage things like as a product manager. But it's also required me to have like that detailed level perspective of like an engineer or developer. So I think like getting to do both those things has been really fun, and I really enjoy the duality of it. And I'm also very proud of it because it has been one of those opportunities where I've had to like learn a lot on my own and advance my technical skill set through my own initiatives.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of own initiatives, I know you developed a BidMass math game that's available on the Google Play Store, which I thought was really cool. Could you tell us why you decided to take on that side project?
So I will say it used to be on the Google Play Store, but it ended up coming off because I stopped maintaining it. But it was a project that I did after my second year of engineering, and I had just learned about Java, and I really wanted to practice coding and practice Java. So I thought an app would be a fun way to like learn how to code. And basically the game is it's like you have three, so it's based on like a deck of cards. It's like an actual playing game, and you have like 3 cards on the top, and you have to use the rules of BidMass to get them to equal like a card on the bottom. And then the face cards have the values of like Jack is 11, Queen is 12, King is 13. And then there's like some other little rules about like division, like you just round to the nearest integer. So but yeah, it was more of just like a fun project. And it was actually a game that I learned from my friends, and I was like the worst person at it. And it stuck with me for years. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to build an app to get better at this game.
I think that's really exciting.
Thanks.
That sounds like a lot of fun, and it sounds like a good way to really get good at skills. I find on the robotics team, like the things where I'm really passionate about what I'm learning about, I can go further on them. So like those outside of school projects, almost I learned more from that than I do from some of my classes, because I'm really invested and I need to find a practical solution at the end of it.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I would say like school is great because it gives you like the foundation and the theory, but like in terms of actually building something, like there's so much that you just can't do in the classroom. Getting your hands dirty is like the best way to really learn. And it's also, you're right, like when you're passionate about something, you really put your energy towards it.
So now I'm going to ask you about a thorny problem you've dealt with. What do you think is the most challenging environment or concept that you've worked with?
The most challenging environment. I mean, okay, so I mean, from a technical aspect, it's definitely been the endoscope positioner. But let me give you an example of a challenging soft skill environment, which was my capstone group when I was in my 4th year. So we were basically put into like groups of 4 or 5 people, and you work together over the course of your last year to like build some sort of project. And I think the thing that was challenging about that was that everybody on the team had their own idea of like what they wanted to do and like how they wanted to do it. And I think like when you have like 4 or 5 people all at once, like trying to like express their own ideas, getting everyone to align on one thing is extremely challenging. And also like you have people with different skill sets. Like some people were really good at documentation, some people were really good at like coding, some people are really good at the electrical stuff. And it's like, I guess being able to like streamline everyone and organize them and like keep a momentum going was way more difficult than I thought it was going to be.
That sounds like a really good skill to develop though. Like how can you put all of these talented people with conflicting ideas and like get everybody pointing in the same direction?
Yeah, it's really tough. I think, and especially like when you have meetings and stuff, it's really easy for people to go off track and talk about like, they can go into their own tangents of their own ideas. So I think like a large part of it for me was like in meetings, like try to be focused about like, what are the deliverables? Like, what are we trying to do here? And then like trying to like come up with an answer together for those. And then like, once you kind of have those nailed down, like I would be like, okay, like we can like now talk about this tangent that you want to go off on if we have time, kind of thing.
Well, that sounds really good.
Mm-hmm.
I also noticed that you did a co-op at your time at school. So could you tell us a little bit about your co-op position and what you took away from it?
Sure. So I did my co-op at AMD, which is a company that makes microchips. And I did a 16-month internship there as a software architecture intern. And it was a really great experience for me because it allowed me to work with a lot of different teams as a software architect. So like my bosses were responsible for like the high level design of like what the next products were going to be. And then my job would be to like work with engineers from other teams to implement those. One other thing that I got to do, which was really cool, was I was invited to work with a group at the company called the Gurus, and they were like responsible for designing like features that interface with the operating system and like stuff that I had learned like in my courses, like they were actually using these things, and it was really cool to like see people in the real world using stuff that I was learning in school, which I was like, I'm not sure if I'll ever use it, but apparently it actually is quite useful.
Wow, that's cool. And what are you most excited about in the robotics field?
I mean, there's like a lot of exciting things going on. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen that video of Atlas from Boston Dynamics, where he's doing like the dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like basically a bunch of robots and they're all choreographed and dancing. Like that was obviously really cool. But I would say like the thing that I get most excited about for me was when I got to be a judge at the first robotics tournament a couple years ago. Just to like see all of these young people like getting together on a weekend to like show off their robots, getting so excited about robotics, like that for me was very inspiring, and it was very impressive. Like the things that these kids are building in high school, like they show a lot of creativity and ingenuity and like really great designs. And like I remember like being there and feeling so excited at like being surrounded by all this great energy and all this like creativity and talent.
I know for me, like in grade 12, I finally got to experience robotics in high school and I just got hooked, and that was so exciting for me. So it's nice to hear that you're doing that for the next generation of kids coming up.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so like thrilled to hear that. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, have you experienced any barriers to entering the field of robotics?
I mean, My personal experience, so I would say, like, when I started from engineering, I had a really great experience. Like, even as a woman, like, there are a lot of companies that are really excited about hiring women and getting more women involved in engineering. And so it was a very positive experience for me, like coming into engineering from what I guess is considered a minority group. But like thinking, I guess, further back to a time when I was deciding what I wanted to do when I was in high school, definitely, I think I grew up with a sense of feeling like I couldn't be good at math or physics, and computers and all that stuff was very intimidating to me. And I guess that was sort of like a barrier that you can't really like see or feel, but it's just kind of there in the background. So I would say like that was probably a barrier to me when I was growing up. However, I'm not sure, like, I think we've talked a little bit about this, but like how that barrier has changed over time, because that was like 15 years ago or something. So yeah, I think like that was definitely a barrier for me, but I think once I got into engineering, I felt very welcomed and like there were a lot of opportunities available to me.
That's good to hear. I think both Kelly and I have experienced that as well. The subconscious or ingrained societal feeling of are women supposed to do engineering, and maybe not being pushed towards learning how to use tools growing up. So now we're catching up with that. So for me, like I'm taking the initiative to learn how to use tools, but sometimes I can feel really self-conscious about that. I should already know how to do this. Some of the guys I know grew up using them, but it's something I'm really excited about doing, and I love building stuff. So I'm getting there.
That's really great. I definitely identify with that as well a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another question we have is, why is diversity and representation in the workplace as well as in STEM important to you?
I think diversity in the sense of having a diversity of perspectives is very important, because I think people that go into STEM, we're the ones that are shaping the world and what our future is going to look like, right? We're the ones developing technologies or working in hospitals or research or whatever it is that we're doing. And so we need to reflect the society that we are building the future for. So like, if I give you like a trivial example, like say I have a scissor company and I hire 10 right-handed engineers to make a new pair of scissors, what do you think they're gonna make? Like probably another pair of right-handed scissors, right?
Yeah.
So we've just lost 7% of the scissor market because we forgot to include a left-handed engineer in our team. So I think like it's important as a STEM person or in the community to think about the people that you're serving so that you can understand their needs and the issues that they face.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I feel like like some things are only thought of when it applies to you. So you need those different perspectives when creating different products and with everything that you really do.
Absolutely, yeah. Especially if you're in a position where like you're designing something, like it's really easy to be limited by your own vision.
I know on the robotics team, something we talk about is constructive dissent. So within my own teams, I'm like, okay, so I have this idea. Please give me some disagreements. Think about ways it could be wrong, because I'm not confident yet. It's just a hypothesis. Please, let's have a discussion about this. And so I find we find interesting solutions that way, because you can have an idea, but you can get too stuck on it. So having a lot of different voices in the room really helps come up with interesting ways to solve a problem.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Like that's actually a very scientific approach, because like from a scientific method perspective, like you have a hypothesis and like people often think like, how can I prove it's true? How can I prove that I'm right? But what you really should be doing is saying, how can I disprove that? So you're right, like this, you called it constructive dissent?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that is a very scientific approach.
That's interesting. It's an interesting way to frame it because it does feel subconscious when you, or not subconscious, but it feels wrong when you do it because you're like, please tell me why I'm wrong. But then it's very helpful when you do it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So now I have a fun question for you. What is your
Okay.
motto?
What is my motto?
Yeah.
I mean, I think like in the previous question, you asked me what I've done differently.
Yeah.
And I think like my motto is to seek out interesting and difficult problems.
That sounds like a good way to get strong. Sounds like it makes sense how you've gotten here.
Yeah. And it's also just like, if you can open yourself up to it, it's a lot of fun too.
That's cool. And then our last question is, do you have any advice for students interested in entering the field of robotics?
Yes, so I will pass on some advice that my master's supervisor gave to me, which is that it's the people who always understand how things work who will never be out of a job. So I think like regardless of like what field you go into or what system you're working on, like if you understand how something works, you make yourself an invaluable asset. And you should always strive to be the person who like knows how to fix this or that.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and your time and your ideas with us today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.